everyone. Today we're going to explore some research findings by Dr. Bessel Van Der Kolk, who specializes in trauma and wrote one of the most amazing books I have ever read on the topic of trauma, titled The Body Keeps the Score. This book is based on his years of research in what are some of the most effective ways to heal from complex trauma without using medication, because medication for trauma isn't very effective, he explained. He said that his goal was to find the answer to the question, how do we teach people to live in bodies that they feel fundamentally safe? So let's just dive into it. If you're new to this channel, I'd like to take a moment and welcome you and invite you to please subscribe and be sure and hit that notification bell because I put out new videos every week. Also, if you are interested in one-on-one narcissistic abuse recovery coaching with me, please visit my website or send me an email. Both are linked in the description below. So the first thing Dr. Bessel Van Der Kolk talks about with regard to healing complex trauma is that psychotherapy can have tremendous benefits for us. The goal of this psychotherapy, or talking with a professional who has a deep understanding of trauma, is not to fix people, but rather to help people acknowledge the severity and the significance of what they have lived through, which will then help to promote the trauma survivor to really take care of the wounds that they are carrying. And I will tell you, I absolutely believe that the first step to healing from narcissistic abuse is to really acknowledge and validate the depths of what you have been through. I believe healing will evade a trauma survivor until they really understand and validate how significant the abuse really was and the impact that it has had on their lives. Because the truth is, you cannot heal from something you don't even completely acknowledge, and we must execute self-compassion and empathy for what we have been through. So strategy number one, acknowledge the true reality of what you have lived through and the significance of it. I do not believe that a victim can get out of victimhood unless or until they validate the fact that they are indeed a victim of horrible traumatic events. The next effective strategy that Dr. Van Der Kolk explains is very effective at treating someone with complex PTSD is something called Emdr therapy, which I know most of you will likely know what this is. But for those of you that do not, let me explain what Emdr therapy is, because it is not like conventional therapy at all. Emdr stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. In layman's terms, this therapy is conducted using eye movement, meaning moving your eyes from one side to the other while you are talking about the trauma or thinking about the trauma or feeling the emotions that go along with the trauma. Through the eye movement, the traumatic event is processed in the brain and it builds new neural pathways, and in doing so, affective distress is relieved. Negative beliefs are reformulated and the physiological arousal is reduced. The next point that Dr. Van Der Kolk spoke about is yoga. Yoga is incredible for opening up the body and is a vehicle in forming a deep relationship with your body, where so much of your trauma is actually stored. It's very effective at getting you in touch with your internal sensory system. In fact, Dr. Van Der Kolk reported that yoga was working better on people with PTSD than any of the drugs that they studied. Next, he discovered that theater and movement was very helpful in helping people with complex trauma, meaning acting theater or the performing arts. It turns out that playing different roles in your body helps you to feel that your body can feel differently depending on how you organize your relationship to yourself. In fact, some of these theater acting classes have been proven to be highly successful at helping juveniles who have gotten in trouble with the law to turn their lives around, because it gave them the opportunity to play these empowering roles and the emotions and the feelings that go along with playing these roles. They also found that something called Neurofeedback, which is a procedure where they put electrodes onto the traumatized person's skull, and when the person creates a calming and relaxing brainwave, that you get a reward. It has been very successful at helping traumatized people heal their trauma, and in doing so, they can reshape the brain to have a different configuration that promotes an openness to new experiences. The next interesting thing that they found was beneficial in helping complex trauma survivors is psychedelics. I have actually used psychedelic mushrooms a couple of times with a professional there with me, but to help me process and work through some of my own trauma. And psychedelics are being proven time and time again to be very helpful with processing trauma and having a deeper understanding of who we actually are. And lastly, they use something called Mdma in their research, or what it is sometimes called is ecstasy or Molly, which is another kind of drug that has similar effects as the psychedelics. And again, the results from their research showed time and time again this was highly effective in helping trauma victims. So in closing, I think the lesson here is that we need to start thinking outside of the box and utilize different methods for helping trauma survivors process their trauma, and heal it so they can move forward and have happy and successful lives without being on a psychiatric drug long term.